Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show. Have you heard? The people from the Dark Cloud Kingdom and Xingyao Kingdom are strangled because of an extermination mission. Ah? And this? Is it true? Of course it is true. I just came back from there, just outside a canyon on the other side of the rotten land. Now the people on both sides are facing each other. The rotten land? Didn't it say that it was polluted by the breath of chaos recently, and there were many seventh-order monsters? Yes, it's there. It seems that because people on both sides have taken over the task of slaying monsters, no one will let anyone else. Haha, isn't that a good show to watch? After the conversation, Lin You stopped listening. And his eyes gradually became surprised. He didn't expect to hear news about Xingyao Kingdom here, so he couldn't help but listen a few more words. After all, no matter how he said it, he could be regarded as the lord of half of the Holy Glory Kingdom. If you really want to distinguish, in fact, there should only be two types of countries on the mainland, empires and kingdoms. In a practical sense, the king of a principality can only be regarded as a duke or grand duke under the kingdom, that is, a subordinate country of the kingdom. But the relationship between kingdoms and empires is different. Although they are subordinate to each other, they are also independent of each other. Only because the empire is strong, the surrounding kingdoms have to depend on the empire. Just like the unification of the Tang dynasty, Fanbang paid tribute. Therefore, in theory, all the lords in the kingdom of Xingyao belong to the same country. But these are not the main ones. The most important thing is that the content of these lords' conversations deeply attracted him, and his eyes gradually brightened. Monster stronghold? A large number of seventh-order monsters? Isn't that by ManhwaRecap's resources and points, and there is experience? Anyway, he is not familiar with those lords. Who cares? Go and see first. After thinking about it, I just pulled a random person and asked the location of the rotten land. After learning about the place, he immediately mounted the Demon King Dragon, flew away from the checkpoint, and hurried over there. At the same time, 50 or 60 kilometers from the checkpoint, outside a canyon in a foggy area, the two teams of people stood facing each other on both sides of the entrance, glaring at each other. Dark Cloud Kingdom, don't go too far. This clearing mission is obviously ours to take over first. Humph. What about the next one? You haven't done it yet, haven't you? I think you were just trying to make things difficult for our Xingyao Kingdom. You can't talk nonsense. Which of your eyes saw us on purpose? It wasn't intentional. What did the person who hurt us say? Oh, it was just a miss, sorry, haha. On the side of Dark Cloud Kingdom, the man standing at the front looked like a dead pig, not afraid of boiling water. It was obvious that he was apologizing, but he didn't see any expression of apology, instead there was a hint of sarcasm. Seeing this, the people from Xingyao Kingdom on the opposite side were even more angry, so they wanted to rush to Theory, but they were stopped by a figure of Qianli wearing armor and carrying angel troops. Okay, now that Lu Yuan is seriously injured, the most important thing is to bring him back to the post to heal his injuries. For this clearing mission, they can give it to them if they want. After finishing speaking, those fierce eyes glanced at the people in the Dark Cloud Kingdom, forcing them to lean back a little, with a look of fear on their faces. The man in the lead came back to his senses, and his eyes gradually narrowed. As expected of the princess of the kingdom's subordinate principality, she really doesn't allow her men. You must be Ji Yunshuang, the so-called Angel Valkyrie, right? What? Any advice? Ji Yunshuang, as his name suggests, is as cold as ice and snow, and his frost-covered eyes point directly at each other. And the few seraphs around her also spread their wings and sprinkled a large amount of holy light, reflecting her armor dazzlingly. For a while, the atmosphere of the two teams was tense again, and they confronted each other. But they didn't notice. Just when they were at a stalemate, hundreds of meters above the sky, a black shadow flew past and flew straight into the misty canyon in the distance. It should be right here. Lin You looked at the canyon below according to a simple map he had purchased with other lords, and muttered to himself. And just as those lords were talking about, outside the canyon at this time, if there were two groups of people gathered there, it seemed to be quite angry. Fight, fight, I'll keep this wave of resources for you first, hee. Lin You smiled. He didn't plan to take this trip to the muddy water, and let the demon king dragon plunge into the valley and fly to the deepest place. Vaguely, you can already see a large number of carrion and skeletons that are swimming, and there are even many resentful monsters, and they are all 6th or 7th rank. No wonder he was so angry. However, Lin You has a seductive banshee who can specifically deal with spiritual monsters, so he is not worried. With a direct wave of his hand, a huge plant army slammed to the ground. Under the leadership of Qin Gang, they charged all the surrounding monsters. Immediately after, Qingting's huge figure appeared and fell into the dense group of monsters. The green vines, who were already hungry and thirsty, would have missed such an opportunity. The giant vines quickly took root in the canyon, and the blood and poisonous mist spread out, and began to frantically attack the surrounding monsters. And other plants spread out, and together with it, resist those crazy monsters. Roar! At this moment, the 7th Order undead corpse dog who was wandering around also smelled the smell of the living and rushed towards them with a roar. The resentful spirit floating in the air let out a piercing wailing, and attacked Lin You, who had just landed. However, before they could get close, Lin You was already surrounded by a pink poisonous mist, and the seductive banshees launched banshee kisses, controlling them to kill each other in the air. The Mushroom Demon King on the other side was not idle either. He led the mushrooms behind the charging ancient war tree, and kept throwing mushrooms outside. A series of violent explosions directly overturned the person who was blasting the rushing monster, turning them into piles of bones and corpses. Fortunately, when Lin You came in, he deliberately chose the deepest part of the canyon, which was far away from the entrance, so there was no need to worry that the movement would spread to the outside. It was like this until almost half of the monsters were cleaned up, and the two groups of people facing each other outside finally realized that something was wrong. Something's wrong. Why does the movement inside seem to be getting smaller and smaller? A lord of the Dark Cloud Kingdom said suspiciously. As soon as his words came out, the others around him were stunned, and their expressions were uncertain. It's really small. Did you hear that there seems to be an explosion inside? It seems to be true, I heard it too. Could it be that someone has already entered before us? Not good. Come in and have a look. With that said, the two teams finally reacted, and their expressions changed one after another. How could he care so much? He hurriedly rushed to the canyon with their respective arms. And Ji Yunshuang, who owns the angel-type arms, took the lead and flew into the air. However, when she passed the entrance of the canyon and came inside, she saw a large piece of broken limbs and a few sparse monsters. There is also a plant giant dragon that just flew away from here in the distance. Plant? Ji Yunshuang frowned slightly, staring deeply at the disappearing figure. On the way back, Lin You took a careful count. This time, he has obtained a total of 150,000 mana and nearly 4,000 honor points for destroying the monsters, which can be said to be a huge harvest. Even Qingting's experience value has risen to more than 1,500, which is much faster than expected. Just don't know. What kind of expressions will those people look like when they see the canyon that has been emptied? Maybe they want to cut him into pieces. Congratulations, the task Enemy Den is completed. Please go to the task hall to deliver the task. Just as he was thinking, a prompt suddenly sounded in his mind. It's over so soon? Lin You moved slightly. Now that the task completion prompt appears. That is to say, the Empire has confirmed that the passage at the bottom of the Blackwater Lake is the den where the Yuansha realm sneaked in. Fortunately, I didn't have the arrogance to explore that channel. Otherwise, I can't really say what the danger is. In case one is bad, even a small life may be lost. The next thing, or leave it to the Empire to deal with headaches. Anyway, he is just a small 6th Order lord, but what he never expected was At this moment, several reminders sounded in my mind. Lords, please note that the Blackwater Lake area has been invaded by the Yuansha realm, and an emergency mission of the Empire has been released. Please go to exterminate the enemy as soon as possible. During the release of the emergency mission, each time you kill an enemy, you will get an additional 1,000 honor points, and there is no cap. Lords, please pay attention. The sudden reminder rang 3 times in a row. As long as the lords are near the Blackwater Lake or at the checkpoint, they all receive the news and vibrate. Fuck. 1,000 points? Did I hear it right? Blackwater Lake? Isn't that only a few dozen kilometers away from the checkpoint? My god, the den of Yuanshaji is so close. No wonder I haven't found it before. Where is it? Who discovered it first? Never mind, that's 1,000 points per head. Go ahead and talk about it. In a blink of an eye, all the lords who were staying at the checkpoint, or were hunting monsters nearby, all gathered in the direction of the Blackwater Lake. Not to mention Lin You. The place where he was at this time happened to be very close to the Blackwater Lake. Without any hesitation, the Demon King Dragon turned around and flew over there. When he arrived near the Blackwater Lake, he saw that over the surging lake, the captain of the soldier was leading a few 7th Order lords, and they were fighting wildly with another group of high-ranking lords. The huge momentum shook the entire sky, and the explosions continued. Even in the lake, there are countless undead skeletons crawling out, forming a sea of terrifying undead on the shore. What's going on? How come there are so many skeletons? The other lords who had just arrived exclaimed. I saw that there were several huge space cracks in the Blackwater Lake. Countless skeletons and the lords of the original Sha world emerged from it, frantically attacking the army of Imperial soldiers and the lords who came. The ground was full of corpses, almost dyeing the lakeshore red, and then spreading out at an extremely fast speed. Group space teleportation. Lin Yu's pupils suddenly tightened. I didn't expect Yuansha realm to use such a large hand in order to invade the primitive continent. Seeing that more and more lords passed through the cracks, they did not dare to stay in the air for a long time, and immediately let the Demon King Dragon land on the ground. At the same time, the lords who were doing tasks around here also arrived one after another, bringing their respective arms to join the battle, blocking the invasion of the original Sha world lord and the undead army on the shore of the lake. Quick, quick! Never let the people from the Yuansha realm attack in. To dare to invade such a place so close to the main city, Yuansha realm is too arrogant. Come on! Kill them all! Screams and roars kept echoing in my ears. More and more lords came to hear the news and collided fiercely with the original Shajia army on the shore of the Blackwater Lake. Naturally, Lin You in the crowd did not dare to be sloppy, so he summoned all the plants and began to help defend against the attack of the undead. But gradually Lin You realized that something was wrong. Although these undead are all 7th Order, there is no reward after killing them. Could it be that these undead are all summoned troops? Lin You was completely shocked. To be able to summon such a huge army of undead at one time, the lords of the 7th and 8th Orders will never be able to do it, unless... Roar! As if to answer his guess. Behind one of the space cracks, there was a sudden roar. A huge undead bone dragon rushed out of the crack, causing the entire space to vibrate violently. And on the back of one of the bone dragons, an old man in a black robe stood proudly, staring indifferently at everything below. The captain of the soldier who was still fighting in the air with an 8th Order lord suddenly changed his face. 9th Order lord. That's right. The black-robed old man who appeared on the edge of the crack was a 9th Order undead lord. I saw that next to the lord, in addition to dozens of 9th Order bone dragons, there were also 9th Order undead masters holding staffs. Every time you raise the staff, a large number of 7th Order skeletons will emerge. Those low-level lords of the original evil world were among the undead army, frantically attacking the lords who came in a hurry. Under the impact of the two, the primordial realm quickly showed its decline and was forced to step back. Even the captain of the soldiers in the sky was beaten and retreated, and in a blink of an eye, he was shot down to the ground by the bone dragon, and the sky was stained with blood, making everyone feel tight. The sky and the earth, how can you be presumptuous? Suddenly, a loud boom exploded in the distance. On the other side of the main city, finally, the Ninth Order Lord who received the news came, bringing the sky-filled Hulwan bird troops, and a group of 7th and 8th Order Lords, rushing to the battlefield. Seeing this, the undead lord immediately gave up chasing the captain, recalled all the undead bone dragons to his side, and then looked at the lords around him. Leave here first, and leave this Ninth Order to me to hold it. You must send that thing away, and there must be no mistakes. Yes. The lords responded and immediately fell to the ground. When no one noticed, he hid his breath, quickly disappeared into the forest, and disappeared. The remaining undead lords went straight to meet the flock of fiery birds flying towards him, and started a fierce battle in the air. There are Ninth Order lords to join, plus more and more lords are coming. The battle by the lake finally stabilized the situation and blocked the attacking pace of the undead army. Lin You in the crowd seized the opportunity and caught sight of a lord of the Yuansha realm closest to him at a glance. With the same mind, the charming banshee around him directly launched the banshee kiss, controlling the lord at once, and letting him leave the army team and come outside. It's now! Lin You shouted loudly, and the dense vines rushed out suddenly, tied the opponent's feet through the gap, and pulled hard. The lord woke up and wanted to struggle, but found that his body was entangled by more and more vines. Before he even had time to scream, he was drained of blood by the vines and turned into a mummified corpse. Congratulations, you successfully killed the 6th Order Lord of the Alien Plane, obtained 80,000 mana, 1,010 honor points, and the 6th Order Territory Essence X1. Good job. Lin You was very satisfied with the performance of the plants, and then began to look for the next target while resisting the surrounding attacks. In only 7 or 8 minutes, 3 6th Order Lords died under his sneak attack, contributing more than 3,000 points to him. Quick! It's just ahead. On the plain near the Blackwater Lake, Ji Yunshuang led the team to run fast. Like other lords. As soon as they received the news of the urgent mission, they immediately left the rotten land and hurried to the direction of Blackwater Lake. Finally arrived successfully not long after the war. Looking at the endless army of skeletons in front of him, Ji Yunshuang, who was at the forefront of the team, suddenly paled. A lot of skeletons, it really is the people from the original evil world who have invaded here, everyone be careful. After saying that, he immediately summoned his own angel troops to protect the left and right, and at the same time, glanced around. Okay? Sudden. Her eyes were attracted by a few plant dragons flying back and forth in the distance, and she let out a light hum. What's the matter? Captain? A beast lord next to him asked. His voice also made Ji Yunshuang wake up. It's okay, let's hurry up and help, and try to kill a few more lords of the original Sha world. Yes. We're going to keep them coming and going. Let's kill it together. The other lords in the back responded one after another and directly summoned their respective arms to join the battle. But he didn't notice that Ji Yunshuang's eyes had been staying near the few plant dragons in the distance, searching everywhere. Finally, her eyes locked on Lin You, who was standing in the pile of plants and kept commanding. Is it him? A faint voice sounded in her mouth, and her eyes gradually narrowed. The hurried glance, just now, although she did not let her see the other side's appearance, but remembered the other side's arms, which is one of the few plant dragons in front of her. Ji Yunshuang is still very concerned about this guy who robbed them of their resources and made the Dark Cloud Kingdom collapse. Even a little resentful. After all, that's the resource point they looked at first, it's really abominable. But at the same time, she was very curious. What kind of person is he who can solve so many 7th Order chaotic monsters alone, and in such a short period of time? Among the 6th Order Lords, there are only a handful of them who can achieve this level. People like this shouldn't be anonymous. So she commanded the arms to fight while secretly watching Lin Yu's every move, trying to see something from Lin You. Lin You concentrates on fighting. Naturally, he didn't know that he was being targeted. Seeing that the plants in front could not be attacked for a long time, and were blocked by a large number of undead and the lord of the original Shajia, he frowned immediately, and immediately gave instructions to the Demon King Dragon and Demon Concubine Dragon who were fighting with each other's flying arms. The Demon King Dragon and the Demon Concubine Dragon, who received the order, directly shook the arms around them, and then let out a long roar, flying around each other and flying high into the sky. The loud and high-pitched dragon immediately attracted the surrounding lords to look here. What is he going to do? Ji Yunshuang, like other lords, had doubts in his eyes. However, in the next second, their eyes widened. I saw a terrifying gust of wind suddenly blowing around under the high-speed circling of the few plant dragons. In an instant, the sand flew away and the ground shook. All the skeletons and units in the range were swept up into the sky, and the black pressure was pressed together into one piece, constantly melting under the impact of the strong wind. When the gust of wind dissipated, only a pile of broken arms and broken bones were left in the entire range, and none of them were spared. What a perverted skill. This is a combination skill? This is too exaggerated. Can even the 7th Order troops be dropped in seconds? Is he really a 6th Order lord? The lords talked a lot, and the lord of the original Shajia opposite was full of fear. They looked at each other and immediately reached a consensus. Go. Let's get rid of him together. Never let him get out of here alive. Surround him with me. Obviously, they felt Lin Yu's threat. If they let it go like this, it would definitely be a huge threat to them. Even the 7th Order lords in the distance stared at Lin Yu and directed a group of 8th Order troops to charge at him. Want to bully the small? Are you still shameless in the original evil world? Fortunately, among the 7th Order lords in the primitive world, there are also many who have noticed the situation here. As soon as he saw that Lin Yu was being targeted, a 7th Order lord led the troops to block the opponent's way and started a fierce battle on the spot. Sure enough, when faced with a common enemy, everyone is more like the same enemy. This time, Lin Yu finally didn't have to worry about encountering danger and let go of his hands and feet. After thinking about it, he stretched out his hand. Come out, Qingting. In an instant, Qingting's huge body appeared on the battlefield, causing the entire ground to shake violently. Fuck. What kind of monster is this? Isn't this the plant soldier that appeared outside the checkpoint yesterday? It seems to be true. Among those who were defending against the attack of the undead, there were many lords who participated in the checkpoint guard battle yesterday, and they recognized Lin Yu's plants at a glance. The reason why Lin Yu didn't summon Qingting in the first place was because he didn't want to be recognized as him, apart from being afraid of being targeted by high-ranking lords. But now, every time he kills a lord, he can get an extra 1,000 points. As soon as Qingting's huge body appeared, the giant vines around it were inserted into the ground, frantically sucking the blood left by the troops on the ground, and the attributes were also rising rapidly. Where had the 6th Order lords of the Yuansha realm in front of them seen such exaggerated scenes, they suddenly became terrified, and hurriedly retreated with their arms. But the next second, a giant vine suddenly rushed out from behind them, blocking their way. At the same time, the bloody, charming, and withering poisonous mist of the banshee plants opened up, shrouding them in an instant. Be careful. It's poisonous in here. During the shouting, a dazzling light erupted from the arms of an angel lord, dispelling the poisonous mist around them, while protecting their minds and resisting the spiritual impact of the charming banshee. The remaining troops of the other lords also did their best and began to frantically attack Lin Yu's plants. Not to mention, facing the attacks of so many lords at the same time, Lin Yu was still a little stressed. Even if there are many vines and vines, there is no way to break through their defenses in a short time. Immediately let the thick-skinned ancient war tree go up, other plants flank from the flanks, and the mushrooms threw bombs in the rear. Boom boom dash. A series of violent explosions, and a large number of troops were killed on the spot. And his plants also lost a lot, and the ancient war trees died under their attacks one after another. In less than half a minute, only 10 ancient war trees, including Qinggang, were left. Without hesitation, let Qinggang unleash a savage roar. Hearing a roar, the red light diffused, and the attributes of all plants instantly increased by 30%, and they began to crush the lords. What's the matter? How did these plants suddenly become stronger? The angelic lord shouted in panic. It was precisely because of his panic that the seductive banshee, who had been waiting for an opportunity for a long time, finally seized the opportunity, hit him hard, and controlled him. Whoosh! The sound of breaking the air sounded. A wooden thorn shot out from Lingxi's front, and at the same time, a huge vine also rushed out from the sole of the lord's feet. Puff! The lord's body was instantly pierced, and all his troops died violently. Without the dispersal and assistance of the angel-type troops, the remaining lords were suddenly defeated and died under the gang fights of the plants. Congratulations, you successfully killed the 6th Order Lord of the Alien Plane, and obtained 100,000 magic energy, 1,010 honor points, and 6th Order Territory Essence X1. Congratulations, you successfully killed the 6th Order Lord of the Alien Plane, and obtained 40,000 magic energy, 1,010 honor points, and 6th Order Territory Essence X1. Congratulations. In a blink of an eye, Lin You had obtained nearly 300,000 magic energy and 5,000 points. In addition to the magic energy he obtained before, he now has a huge sum of up to 800,000. Crack! A crisp sound was heard in the ears of all the lords near the Blackwater Lake. After more than 20 minutes of fighting, the space crack connecting the primordial realm and the primordial demon realm finally couldn't support it and began to shrink gradually. The undead lord who was fighting in the air sank and couldn't help but look at the 9th Order Lord in front of him. You are lucky today, let's let you go first. Retreat. With a loud shout, he directly rode the undead bone dragon away and flew straight to the crack closest to him, and the lords of the original Shajia who were in the melee below received orders and retreated while fighting, hurriedly fleeing to the crack that had shrunk by more than half. Want to leave? Leave your life behind. The 9th Order Lord naturally couldn't let the other party go so easily. Hulwan bird beside him suddenly burst into flames, turning into huge meteorites that fell from the sky and exploded around the crack. In an instant, all the cracks were swallowed up by a sea of fire, and even the Blackwater Lake was filled with flames. Those lords and skeletons of the original Shajia who couldn't escape were instantly burnt to ashes. Immediately following a loud bang, the crack completely collapsed and turned into nothingness, smashing the few undead bone dragons behind and turning them into a pile of broken bones. But unfortunately, he did not succeed in leaving the undead lord. After all, the higher the lord, the harder it is to kill. The opponent wants to escape, and it is still very difficult to kill. But the good news is that almost 70% of the lords of the Yuansha realm who followed the undead army to attack were killed by them, which can be regarded as a heavy loss to the Yuansha realm. When all the remnants were cleaned up, a large crowd of excited cheers erupted from the shore of the Blackwater Lake. Congratulations, you successfully repelled the invasion of the Yuansha realm and gained 3,000 honor points. Lin You stood in the middle of a large corpse, listening to the prompts in his mind, and was also very happy. In this encounter, he killed a total of 12 6th Order lords. Accumulated a full 15,000 points, and counting the tasks he has and the tasks that have not yet been handed in, it just reaches 20,000. Another big step forward from exchanging the teleportation array blueprint. He couldn't help but think about how good it would be for the Yuansha realm to invade a few more times. But then again, this time the Yuansha realm invasion was a little too strange. Knowing that the Blackwater Lake is very close to the main city, the battle is extremely unfavorable, and the space crack is even opened here. Isn't this a death in vain? Something is wrong. Lin Yu's brows gradually wrinkled, and he always felt that this invasion of Yuansha realm had another purpose. However, before he could think about it, a figure appeared in front of him, blocking his vision. Lin Yu raised his head in confusion, looked at the person who came, and was stunned. Because standing in front of him was a handsome woman wearing red armor, holding a sword around her waist and looking heroic. In this way, he brought two 7th-order seraphim units directly to him, staring at him intently. Before he could say anything, he heard the other party suddenly say, "It was you who robbed us of our resources, right?" At this moment, Ji Yunshuang was almost certain that the guy who stole their resources just now was the man in front of him, because no matter its military or strength, this man basically matches all the information she has, and it's just so close. You can't go wrong. After hearing her question, Lin You was also shocked and a little surprised. He didn't expect that the other party would come to the door so quickly. Could it be that he was exposed when he left the canyon? When he passed through that canyon just now, he didn't see clearly the appearance of those people below, so he didn't know Ji Yunshuang. But since the other party has already come to the door, he must not admit it. He said calmly, "What resources? I just got here, don't spit your blood." As soon as it came up, it was the expression that the dead pig was not afraid of boiling water. Seeing his appearance, Ji Yunshuang suddenly caught his breath. "You." Well, she really has no direct evidence to prove that it was Lin You who did it. And she didn't come here this time to ask for guilt. Taking a deep breath, he said, "It's fine if you don't want to admit it. I'm here this time too." However, halfway through the conversation, it was suddenly interrupted by a distant shout. "My lord! We found a suspicious figure in the nearby forest." I saw the edge of the mountain forest in the distance. A group of soldiers grabbed a dying man and rushed towards the 9th-order lord who had just fallen to the lake. Lin You and Ji Yunshuang happened to be nearby, so they looked over curiously. I saw that the dying man was covered in blood and covered in wounds. Apparently it had just been through a fierce battle. The 9th-order lord who was explaining things to his subordinates was also attracted by this shout. "Okay?" Suddenly, he discovered the unusualness of the man, and a few stepped forward to the soldier, and lifted the man's robe full of strange lines. The next second, a familiar sense of rejection suddenly appeared. "This is a person from the original Sha world." Everyone around was shocked. Unexpectedly, the people of Yuansha realm actually know this way of hiding aura. Could it be that they tried to infiltrate the primitive world in this way? "Where did you find him?" the 9th-order lord asked with a gloomy face. "It's in the woods over there." One of the soldiers replied respectfully. "At first we saw him sneaking around, so we wanted to go forward and ask, but we didn't expect him to suddenly explode and seriously injure a few of our companions. Fortunately, other lords arrived, and he was successfully captured." "Okay, well done. Is there anything else to discover?" the 9th-order lord asked again. "And this?" With that said, the soldier took out a gray crystal from his arms. The crystal is not big and can be held with a slap, but the strange thing is that the moment it appeared, the surrounding space began to gradually distort. In the crystal, there is a thing like a black nucleus, deep and violent, as if it will swallow everything around it. Seeing this crystal, the 9th-order lord was shocked. "This is the power of rules." On the side, there was a sudden shout. The one who made the sound was Ji Yunshuang, who was standing on the side. At this time, she was also extremely surprised to see the crystal in the soldier's hand, and actually recognized the crystal. The 9th-order lord looked at her, curiously. "Little girl, you also know the power of rules?" "I know some." Ji Yunshuang nodded. "I have seen my father use this kind of power." When the 9th-order lord heard the words, his expression suddenly changed. "Oh, it turned out to be the daughter of the king. It's a pleasure to meet you." Those who can use the power of rules are at least 10th-order existences. Although he was only one step away from the 10th rank, it was like a gulf, and naturally he did not dare to despise Ji Yunshuang. Not to mention Lin You next to him, who has long been stunned. "It was the daughter of the king who came here to settle the account? You actually robbed the resources of the king's daughter? No, you have to get away quickly." Lin You thought about it and turned around to get on the demon king dragon and leave here. However, the next conversation between the two made him stop all actions. "I feel, the power of this rule is a bit weird, it doesn't seem to be the same as what I remembered." Ji Yunshuang frowned slightly. and there was a trace of doubt in his eyes. "Oh, is it so?" The Ninth Order Lord was a little surprised, and looked at the crystal again, looking at it carefully. However, when he felt the twisting power on the crystal, his eyes suddenly condensed. "No, this is not the power of the rules, but the reversal of the rules." While speaking, he didn't care too much, just took the crystal and put it in his hand to study it carefully. The more he observed, the more shocked his expression became, and there was even a hint of astonishment. Even Ji Yunchuang didn't understand what he meant, so he couldn't help but ask, "Rule reversal? What is that?" "It's a power that can reverse the rules." The Ninth Order Lord took a deep breath and his face became more solemn. "If this kind of power is placed on the main plane like primitive continent, it's good to say that it will only cause temporary disorder of the rules at most, but the secondary plane is different. Once this thing falls into the secondary plane, it will be destroyed instantly. The rules of the entire plane, and even several adjacent planes, will be completely obliterated. They want to use this thing to destroy the foundation of the primitive continent." The last sentence was almost uttered in a roaring manner. Even the hands holding the crystal trembled wildly, enough to see the anger in his heart at this time. The secondary plane of the continent is a place for training new lords. Once destroyed, a large number of new lords will be destroyed, leaving the continent with no successor. What is the difference between destroying their foundations? The means of this original evil world can be so vicious. Stop talking about him. Even Ji Yunchuang's eyes were wide open and he covered his mouth, his face was full of surprise. Not to mention Lin You on the side. At this time a storm had already set off in his heart, even a bit more shocking than them. Because he heard a very crucial message. Yuansha realm wants to destroy the secondary plane of training lords. Isn't that the same area he stayed in before? What is the difference between devouring all the lords who have risen to the 6th level and destroying that area? Could it be that that was actually done by people from the original evil world? Thinking of this, Lin Yu was completely shocked. The doubts that had been there for a long time were suddenly enlightened. Since the people of the original Sha world can hide their breath and sneak into the original continent, does that mean that among those 10th Order lords, there may be hidden dogs of the original evil world? Probably. After all, as a lord, I know how important the secondary level is to a continent, and I will definitely not do things that destroy the foundation easily. Because once discovered, it will usher in a catastrophe. There is no room for maneuver. Under the shock, he couldn't help but look at the Ninth Order Lord, staring straight at the grey crystal. Then I saw the Ninth Order Lord suddenly frowned and said, "It seems that this invasion of the original shaman world is prepared. It is likely that more than one crystal has been prepared, and they will also hide their breath. This is a bit difficult to handle." "Yes. Then what should we do? We can't let them go unpunished, right?" Ji Yunchuang said immediately. "This matter must be reported, but it may not be easy to find out their whereabouts. Since they dare to do this, there must be some guilt among us, and at least 10th Order or above can stimulate this reversal." Power. 10th Order. Doesn't that mean? Yes, among the kings on the continent, there are people from Yuansha realm. The Ninth Order Lord said with almost certainty, although I don't know what method he used to hide from everyone's eyes. I have to say that the other parties, the means are really clever. How come? Ji Yunchuang stepped back in shock, almost unsteady. Then he thought of something, and said, "But there are so many kings on the continent, how should we find that person? This is the most difficult thing to do." The Ninth Order Lord sighed helplessly. There are so many countries on the continent, and there are so many subplanes below. If you don't know their exact target, you can only find a needle in a haystack, and the chances are slim. Saying that, his face became a little heavier. At the same time, some regret. If he can find out in time, maybe he can stop it in time. Those are tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of Lord seedlings. If the area is destroyed, none of the lords in it will be spared, which will greatly damage the vitality of the primitive continent. Yuanshiji really has a vicious mind. Desire to annex their primitive world. The plan for now is to report this matter as soon as possible, after all, the longer it is delayed, the worse it will be for them. So soon, the Ninth Order Lord put away the crystal and said to the surrounding lords, go back to the main city first. The others stay and clean up the corpses. After he finished speaking, he jumped directly onto the back of a Hulwan bird and flew to the direction of the main city, leaving only the terrified people around. From triggering a beast tide to establishing a stronghold. From the discovery of the stronghold, to the large-scale invasion. All of this is actually just Yuanshiji preparing for this shocking plan. Looking back now, it makes me feel horrified. If it is a normal situation, I am afraid that primitive continent really wants to take the Tao of primordial Sha continent this time, and its vitality will be greatly damaged. However, a wise man will always fail. No matter how well planned, there will always be omissions. Yuanshiji probably would never have thought that in the area blocked by them, several lords managed to escape. And one of the lords, who grew rapidly in a short period of time, came to the frontier battlefield and witnessed their plan with his own eyes. If there is anyone on this continent who knows where the inside should be, Lin You is definitely one of them. This is also the first time that Lin You is so close to the truth of the regional blockade. I couldn't help but feel a little excited. Although he couldn't kill the enemy who wanted to devour him himself, he could borrow the hands of others. Just like the beauty in front of me. The other party also admitted just now that she is the daughter of the king, and most likely the daughter of a king under their Xingyao kingdom. If you can see King Xingyao through this line, then his safety will be more guaranteed. Of course, before determining who the real culprit is, he still doesn't dare to expose himself too much, so as not to invite murder. So after pondering, he came to Ji Yunchuang, whose face was pale, and said, dare to ask, which king's daughter are you? Hearing his voice, Ji Yunchuang finally recovered. But now she is distracted and doesn't want to entangle with Lin You about resources anymore, so she asks directly, why did you ask me this all of a sudden? It's nothing, I just want to confirm something. Lin Yu's expression was extremely serious, and he was completely different from just now. Ji Yunchuang was slightly surprised, but he answered truthfully, I am Ji Yunchuang, the principality of Xingyao Kingdom, the daughter of the king of the great wilderness. At this moment, it was Lin Yu's turn to be stunned, and looked at Ji Yunchuang with a stunned expression, you are the daughter of the king of the great wilderness? If you're enjoying my content, please consider donating a coffee. Or checking out my shirts on TeePublic. Ji Yunchuang's answer really made Lin You lay stunned. He never imagined that the person standing in front of him was the princess of the great wild country where he was, the daughter of King Ji Xinghe. Isn't this a coincidence? In this way, he also saved the effort of running around again. What? Are you also from the great wilderness country? Seeing Lin Yu's reaction, Ji Yunchuang asked subconsciously, her eyes shining brightly. If Lin Yu was from their principality, it would be different. After all, she had seen Lin Yu's true strength just now, and she is definitely the top existence in the Sixth Order, so she naturally attaches great importance to it. And her rhetorical question finally made Lin Yu realize that he was leaking, and his expression changed. However, thinking that he still needs to ask the other party, he simply admits it directly, yes, I am a person from the great wilderness country. It really is? Ji Yunchuang's voice contained surprise. Even the haze mood just now was swept away. Then, as if thinking of something, his eyes suddenly lit up, I see, you are that Lin You. Lin You, this girl is too evil, can you even guess this? Did she check the account? Lin You felt that his privacy had been violated. But on second thought, he has been making a lot of noise recently when he rushed to the Sixth Order list, and it seems that it is not difficult to guess his identity. With a light cough, he continued, you guessed it right. It's really you. Ji Yunchuang did not expect that a powerful Sixth Order lord like Lin You would be someone from their duchy, and it was Lin You who had been receiving attention recently. You can imagine how surprised he was. Recalling the performance of Lin You far surpassed that of ordinary lords when he resisted the invasion of Yuansha realm just now. Ji Yunchuang finally understood why he suddenly reached the top of the list and even squeezed into the top 4 in the kingdom. At the same time, the mood is also very complicated. I didn't expect to encounter this man who easily surpassed me in this way, and make such an oolong. However, as the daughter of the king, she has a good psychological quality, so she immediately lowered her heart and asked, "You said, you want to confirm one thing with me, what is it?" "It's about the secondary plane. I think you, as a princess, should know a lot about this, right?" Lin You said sideways. "I do know a lot." Ji Yunchuang nodded. "What do you want to ask?" "It's about communicating with the secondary plane." Lin You said while observing Ji Yunchuang's expression, "Because I came from there, I always wanted to know how the king opened the space channel and sent those sixth-order lords over. I don't know much about this, because my father has not been in charge of this matter for a long time, and now those secondary planes are managed by several other kings." "Are all the other kings in charge?" Lin Yu's eyes brightened. In this way, the great wilderness king can basically rule out suspicion. As for King Xingyao, needless to say, the traders of Yuansha realm would not be so generous in distributing resources to the countries below to improve their strength. Isn't this looking for a draw for the Yuansha realm? And if a trader is allowed to mix up to the level of the king of the kingdom, then the other lords really don't need to mix. However, just to be cautious, he still said in a different way, "Thank you for telling me. In fact, I also wanted to ask this because I saw a strange picture when I sent it over." "Strange picture? What is that, that is?" Then, Lin Yu described to Ji Yunchuang the picture of the giant mouth swallowing the tunnel when he was teleporting to the void platform. After listening to his words, Ji Yunchuang's expression gradually became solemn. "What you said is true. It's not wrong, I saw it with my own eyes. At the time, I thought that the Lord sent it over like that, but now I think it's not like that." "Okay, I understand, I'll go back and ask my father right now." Ji Yunchuang seemed to finally realize the seriousness of the matter and said solemnly. He didn't even bother to hurry, so he took out a teleportation crystal, and after 5 seconds passed, it immediately turned into a white light and disappeared in front of Lin Yu. Looking at the empty surroundings, Lin Yu smiled slightly. His plan seemed to be successful. Next, we will just wait for the development of the situation and see the reaction of the great wilderness king and the Xingyao king. If possible, he would at least want to see the picture of the real murderer's tragic death. This is not in vain for his hard work during this period of time, and there are so many unjust souls who died tragically. Think about it. With the 2 devouring flowers around him, he began to devour the surrounding corpses. After all, these are all experiences and cannot be wasted in vain. Although every corpse that is above the 7th rank will only gain 1 point of experience, it will add up to a lot, and it will be much faster than hunting monsters. The only pity is that almost all the bodies near the shore of the Blackwater Lake have been burned by the fire just now, leaving only a small part of the shore. Before it was cleaned up by the imperial soldiers, he immediately let the devouring flower begin to devour it. Huh? What is that? Suddenly, Lin Yu's eyes were drawn to a different corpse in the distance. The corpse in between was covered in a black robe, with a shattered skeleton staff lying beside it. Although it is completely dead, it can still be clearly felt that it is different from other skeletons. Take a closer look, isn't it the undead archmage soldier next to the undead lord? Lin Yu was overjoyed, but he remembered that in addition to swallowing the corpse to gain experience, the flower of devouring could also copy an original skill of the corpse. If you can copy the skill of summoning the Sea of Skeletons. Thinking of this, he did not hesitate, and directly called one of the devouring flowers and swallowed the corpse of the undead archmage. Immediately afterwards, a notification sounded. Congratulations, the skill has been copied successfully, and the flower of devouring has acquired a new skill, Undead Domain. Undead Domain, the whole body is shrouded in death energy. After other creatures within the range die, they will be transformed into undead flowers and resurrected again. The level is the same as the corpse, and cannot exceed the level of the swallowing flower. The undead flower cannot be resurrected again. After reading the skill introduction, Lin Yu was completely stunned. Although the devouring flower did not inherit the sea of dead spirits from the undead archmage, it did inherit another skill. And because it is a plant-based relationship, the summoned skeleton has also become an immortal flower. When a creature within the range dies, it will regenerate into a monster of the same level. Doesn't that mean that if the flower of devouring goes to that station, it will be able to summon a lot of helpers? Great skill. This is simply a surprise. Delighted, he immediately searched for the lake shore, and after a while he found the body of another undead archmage. After another devouring flower was devoured, he also copied the undead domain skill. Suddenly, he added 2 more warriors. It's not bad, it's not a waste of time. Lin You was very satisfied. With these 2 devouring flowers, his group battle endurance has improved a lot. The only regret is that there were only 2 corpses of the undead archmage found on the shore. Except for the 2 main bodies, none of those proliferators have inherited this powerful skill. It seems that we will have to find more powerful corpses in the future. While thinking about it, Lin You continued to devour the corpse with the 2 devouring flowers. It was not until their experience increased to nearly 1,000 points that the surrounding corpses were swallowed up. And he also took the plants back to the territory, rode the demon king dragon and flew away from the Blackwater Lake, and rushed back towards the main city. He is not as rich and powerful as Ji Yunshuang, who uses teleportation crystals to hurry. The first thing Lin You did when he returned to the main city was to hand in the task first. Get 1,500 honor points for the task reward. Then he hurried back to the domain, waiting for news from the king. After all, it took him a lot of time to fly back to the main city all the way, and the news should have been delivered smoothly. Sure enough, not long after, there was a sudden explosion in his ear. Boy! Hurry up and get over here. This explosion sound can be said to appear extremely abruptly. It was as if a loudspeaker was placed in Lin Yu's ear, but he was startled. At the moment when the sound fell, the space in front of him began to distort rapidly, turning into a space channel. Then, his body was wrapped by an invisible force, forcibly pulled into the passage, and he couldn't even resist half a point. Could this be the true strength of the 11th Order Lord? Lin You was inexplicably horrified. But immediately, he calmed down. Because he had already heard that it was the voice of King Xingyao just now. This was a bit unexpected for him. It was not the king of the great wilderness who summoned him, but the terrifying existence of King Xingyao. Swish! The light comes on. When Lin You stood still again, he found himself in a resplendent and luxurious palace. Rows of knights stood upright all around, all exuding terrifying might. Beside him, Ji Yunshuang stood there with a proud and majestic man, his eyes all falling on him. Needless to say, this man who is somewhat similar to Ji Yunshuang should be Ji Yunshuang's father and the king of the great wilderness principality. Ji Xinghe is right. Even a character like Ji Xinghe had to stand under the palace, so the identity of the person sitting on the throne was naturally revealed. Who else besides Xingyao Wang? Even if he didn't need to look at it, Lin You could feel an unmatched terrifying pressure that completely enveloped the entire palace, making him almost breathless. He slowly raised his head, and saw at the top of the palace, a burly and rough man sitting on the throne. His eyes were round, as if he was about to shoot fire. Boy, is it someone under me who is blocking the space channel of the secondary plane as you said? The voice of King Xingyao was like a thunderous thunder, which exploded in the palace. This time, Lin You has truly seen the prestige of King Xingyao himself, which is more terrifying than what he heard on the chat channel. And that voice full of anger was obviously extremely angry, and even the arms holding the throne were shaking violently. Lin You had no doubt that once he dared to lie, the other party would slap him to death. At the same time, it was finally confirmed that King Xingyao was not the real murderer behind the scenes. Not daring to hide it, he said directly, "Yes, what I said before is absolutely false." "What do you have to prove?" King Xingyao's eyes sank slightly, and an invisible force suddenly shrouded Lin You, like a huge wave, pressing Lin You almost to suffocate, and his face was pale. Seeing this, Ji Yunshuang, who was beside him, immediately showed a trace of concern, and wanted to speak out to stop it. But immediately, she realized that Lin You had not succumbed to this pressure. Instead, he stood up straight, his eyes extremely firm. Even Ji Xinghe couldn't help but cast admiring glances at him. A while. Lin You resisted the pressure and said with difficulty, "No need to prove it, because I just escaped from that area." In a word, the entire palace fell silent in an instant. Ji Yunshuang was stunned, because this was completely different from the version she had heard. Even Ji Xinghe was very surprised. He didn't know what Lin You was up to. Only King Xingyao on the throne seemed to have guessed something and suddenly laughed. "Good boy. It's more scheming than I thought." The voice fell, and the terrifying pressure was withdrawn, making Lin Yu's shoulders loose. Until then, Ji Yunshuang couldn't help but ask, "Lin You, didn't you say that you just saw the passage in the other area beside you being blocked? Why is it that you escaped from that area now? Is there any need to ask?" This kid said this on purpose, because he was worried that we would harm him. Even I dared to lie, and he was not timid. King Xingyao, who had already guessed the cause of the matter, said in a loud voice. Although there is a sense of blame in the words, it is more of an appreciation for Lin You, and does not really want to blame him. Ji Xinghe, who was on the side, suddenly realized when he heard this, and couldn't help but look at Lin You a few more times. When they watched, Lin You suddenly smiled bitterly. "I also asked King Xingyao to forgive me. I was forced to do it, otherwise, I would have already died in that area." The words revealed too much helplessness and bitterness. If it wasn't for him being cautious enough, how could he have the opportunity to stand here and talk to them like this? "It seems that you have suffered a lot in order to come here." King Xingyao's eyes gradually became cold. The people under him have been harmed to such a degree by the spies of the Yuansha realm. As a person who rules the 10 major duchies, how can he tolerate it? Tell everything you know about the regional blockade, and I will seek justice for you. The fact that there are spies in the king under his own hands is definitely a shame for King Xingyao, and it may even become the laughingstock of other kings. How can he not be angry? If it wasn't for Lin You and the others, his fiery temper would probably have erupted long ago. And after taking a deep breath, Lin You didn't hide it, and revealed everything he knew along the way. Including how he discovered the blocked secrets, including the process of escape, and the discoveries on the way, all told in great detail. The more the three of them listened, the more ugly their faces became. In the end, he even clenched his fists, and there were faint signs of eruption. "It's so deceiving. Who gave the guts of the original evil world? How dare you kill so many of my people?" The furious King Xingyao suddenly slapped the throne with a slap. Hearing a loud bang, the entire palace shook violently. An extremely terrifying air wave swept out towards the surroundings. Fortunately, Ji Xinghe responded in time and protected Lin You and Ji Yunshuang behind them, so that they were spared. The casual strike of the 11th Order Lord is so terrifying. After venting, King Xingyao also reacted quickly, and immediately looked at a golden-armored knight standing at the front. "Go to and gather all the kings. I will clean up the portal by myself. As long as you dare not come, kill them." The domineering voice made Lin You almost speechless. But what shocked him even more was that when he looked at the Golden Knight, an interface suddenly appeared in his eyes. Name, Templar Commander, Sacred Abyss. Race, Humanoid, Hero. Level 11. Strength? Constitution? Agile? Spirit? Skill? Introduction. The level gap is too large to check the specific information. Humanoid troops. These knights standing on both sides turned out to be humanoid units. At first, Lin You thought that these were the guards of the kingdom, but he did not expect that they were actually the troops of King Xingyao. 11th rank. This extremely terrifying existence, if you take out any one, it is estimated that the duchy can be wiped out. And the words of King Xingyao are also extremely domineering. As long as any king dares not to come, he will be killed on the spot. This is no longer a simple anger to describe, but an ultimatum to those duchy kings. Although simple and rude, it is the most effective way. In the face of absolute power, all tricks are in vain. This made Lin You have to get excited, thinking that if he can reach this height one day, he still needs to be cautious like he is now. Sure enough, in this world, strength is the last word. And just when he was shocked by the strength of King Xingyao, those golden-armored knights also left the palace one by one and rushed in the direction of the major principalities. The few people who stayed were silent for a while, and then heard Jixinghe say, "Lin You, right? I heard you just now that the chaotic atmosphere around the area where you started is shrinking?" "Yes, although not fast, but it is slowly shrinking." Lin You now knows that the gray fog that separates the two areas is the well-known aura of chaos, so he didn't hide it and answered truthfully. Jixinghe also frowned slightly when he heard the words, "This Yuansha realm is really omnipotent, and even trying to use this method to force those lords to upgrade, it's also thanks to you that you can escape from it. It's really hard for you." "Yeah." Ji Yunshuang also interjected at this time, "This kind of thing can actually happen in the secondary plane, and I don't know how many lords have been brutally murdered, if..." When it came to the end, Ji Yunshuang's voice trembled a little. Looking at Lin Yu's eyes, there was even more sympathy. If it was her, in this situation, she thought she couldn't do it to the same extent as Lin Yu. Not to mention standing here to expose the conspiracy of the original evil world. Maybe this is the real reason why Lin Yu is so powerful. Thinking of this, Ji Yunshuang gritted his teeth secretly, showing a hint of firmness. And the King Xingyao on the throne, his anger gradually calmed down, and his admiring eyes also fell on Lin Yu. "Boy, you are very good. I like it very much. Tell me, what reward do you want? You have made a great contribution this time. I can satisfy you no matter what you want." "Any reward?" Lin Yu's eyes lit up. "If you want to give him a reward, he will come to the spirit." "Yes, as long as I can do it, I can." King Xingyao said directly. Lin Youji's move is equivalent to saving the foundation of his Xingyao kingdom, but also the foundation of the primitive continent. As a king, he naturally cannot make people feel cold. Even Jixinghe on the side cast envious glances. The promise made by King Xingyao himself, even if he was extremely moved, Lin You naturally knew that this was an excellent opportunity. He could even risk making a bad impression by opening the lion's mouth, asking for a ton of resources, or something else. If you want to come to Xingyao Wang, he will not refuse. Only, this time. He suddenly thought of the few companions who had been with him and escaped from the area together, and he didn't know what happened to them now. If you really want to count, they have at least a part of the credit. So after pondering for a while, he finally raised his head and said, "In this case, I want to ask King Xingyao to help me find the companions who escaped with me. Without them, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stand here today." As soon as these words came out, everyone including King Xingyao was stunned. All of them looked at Lin Yu with unexpected eyes. They had thought that Lin Yu would ask for a lot of resources. Or relocate to a more prosperous city and get the blessing of King Xingyao. I didn't expect it to be such a simple request. After being stunned, King Xingyao also reacted immediately, and suddenly burst into a hearty laugh. "Ha ha ha, good boy, kind of. I'm liking you more and more, but the requirements you just said are not counted, because even if you don't say it, I will find them, so, I'll give you an additional 500,000 honor points, and a rare plant token, to save those from calling me stingy real." Lin Yu's heart stopped suddenly, and his breathing became rapid. A full 500,000 points. There is also a rare troop token. It's like a piece of pie fell from the sky and almost killed him. "How dare you think too much," and quickly replied, "Thank you, King Xingyao." It's okay, don't keep saying thank you, I don't like that." King Xingyao waved his hand and seemed to be in a good mood. Then with a big wave of his hand, a resource ball condensed by an unknown force came out of his hand and floated towards Lin Yu. Lin Yu hurriedly took it and checked it carefully. There was indeed a token lying inside, and a flickering light group. However, he is still in the palace now, so it is not easy for him to use it face to face. He took a deep breath and put the resource ball into his personal space, intending to use it later. The calm state of mind suddenly made Ji Xinghe on the side nod silently. Then, a few people waited in the palace while chatting casually. It didn't take long for the news of the Golden Knights to come back. What they didn't expect was that the Golden Knight did not bring back the king, but brought back a message. Master, the king of flowing fire, took the territory with him and disappeared. What did you say? King Xingyao stood up from the throne, his eyes rounded. Even Ji Xinghe's father and daughter below looked slightly gloomy. Disappearing at such a critical time, no matter how stupid they are, they can guess the reason. The king of flowing fire nation turned out to be a spy of the Yuansha realm. As soon as this idea appeared, a monstrous power suddenly erupted on King Xingyao, shaking the surrounding air to crack and turning it into a terrifying void. Liuhua, wow, it's actually you, let's go. Go and bring him back to me. After all, he stretched out his hand and grabbed it, and the void in front of him was completely shattered, turning into a space passage, and then he rushed into the passage with a team of golden knights and disappeared. The rest of the people looked at each other. Finally, I heard Ji Xinghe say, let's go with us too, we must not let the spies of Yuansha realm escape from here. It is good. Said, they also followed closely into the space channel and followed the footsteps of King Xingyao. At the same time, far away in the main city of Angel Wings, where the two worlds meet, a dazzling white light lit up on the teleportation plaza, and an embarrassed figure wearing a brocade robe appeared and hurriedly fled outside the city. This person was the King of Fire that was fleeing after receiving the news. It is also the spy who has been lurking on the primitive continent all the time. As soon as he appeared, the terrifying power that was far beyond the Ninth Order Lord spread out involuntarily, and the other lords on the side stopped and pointed. The Pegasus Knights patrolling in the sky also noticed the abnormality here, and they all flew to the ground and came to the King of Fire. I have seen your excellency, why did you come to the main city? Obviously, they have guessed the identity of the king from the imposing manner of the King of Flowing Fire. After all, in places like the main border city, existences above the 10th order will generally not come, unless something major happens. But what they never expected was. Seeing them blocking the way, the King of Flowing Fire suddenly glared in anger, his face full of suffocation. Get out of here. A loud drink. A powerful and boundless aura suddenly erupted from the Fire King's body, turning into a flame and heading towards the knights. The leader of the Ninth Order Lord's complexion changed greatly, and immediately let the Pegasus beside him spread his wings, forming a protective wall of holy light in front of the team. Boom! What? The screams came together. The protective wall of the holy light didn't support it for even a second, and it exploded. Including all the Lord troops behind the wall, they were blown away by this violent force, causing countless casualties. It actually directly broke the rules and protection of the main city. Seeing that the King of Flowing Fire rushed past them and rushed towards the city gate, the seriously injured knight's commander immediately raised his head to the sky and shouted, "Quick! Go and inform the marshal." At this time, the King of Flowing Fire had already rushed through the gate of the city and came out of the city. That flustered face finally showed a trace of viciousness. Want to keep me? It's not that easy. As soon as the words fell, he directly tore the space and traveled several miles away in an instant. Compared with the 11th Order, there is still a big gap between the 10th Order and the 11th Order. But even so, the escape speed of the Fire King was extremely fast, leaving the main city behind in a blink of an eye. Seeing that the city gate behind him was getting farther and farther, his tense nerves gradually relaxed, and he even showed a hint of arrogance and carefree expression. Do you think you can still escape? Fire! But at this moment, a loud explosion suddenly exploded. Before the Fire King escaped, the space suddenly split open and shattered into a vast void. The Fire King, who just wanted to tear apart the space and continue to shuttle, was suddenly shocked and his pupils shrank to the extreme. King Xingyao! With a scream as if a rooster was strangled by the neck, his face was instantly filled with fear. The lords and passers-by who came behind were also shocked by this exaggerated scene, and they were shocked to the extreme. I saw that in the shattered void, the burly King Xingyao walked out slowly, staring at the panicked King Liuhua with a sullen look. Behind, there are also a group of 11th Order, golden-armored knights. The King of Flowing Fire was shocked, and almost without thinking, he tore open the space again, plunged into the crack, and disappeared. It's almost there. Just a little bit more. The Fire King's face was pale, and he kept walking through the void, his eyes fixed on the direction of Yuansha realm. It seems that as long as he reaches the realm of Yuansha continent, he can escape from heaven. However, in the next second, a thunderous explosion sounded again. Death to me. Just heard a loud bang. The void he was in actually shattered into pieces, allowing him to reveal his figure again. Don't give him a chance to resist at all. A vast and boundless force had completely blocked all around him, as if strangling him by the throat, trapping him in the sky, and no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free. He could only helplessly watch that power become more and more violent, pouring into his body crazily, causing his body to swell up rapidly. Xingyao. Stay alive. At this moment, there was an anxious cry from the main city. However, the extremely angry King Xingyao would not give up. Golden light burst out all over his body, and he raised his arm and shook it towards the void. Boom! The body of the Fire King instantly exploded into a cloud of blood, and the sky was stained with blood. Let the hearts of the lords below be shocked. Even the old man who had just arrived, and who was not weak enough to King Xingyao, couldn't help but stop and looked at the sky helplessly. Just one hit. It easily killed a 10th Order king. The shock brought by the picture is absolutely unparalleled. Even Lin You, who was behind the Golden Armored Knights team, was completely shocked by this scene, and the whole person stayed in place. Murderer in blocked area. A powerful and boundless 10th Order king. Just die? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he couldn't believe it was true. But what followed was full of excitement and joy. He really did it. Although he didn't do it himself, he saw the blocked area with his own eyes, and the murderer who wanted to put him to death was slaughtered. It's hard to describe in words how happy I felt. The big stone that had been pressing on his heart also fell, making his whole body light, and he couldn't help but let out a long breath. And right now, a gust of wind blows. The blood mist in the sky gradually dissipated, revealing a radiant crystal inside, floating quietly in the air. The crystal is not big, about the size of a palm, and its shape is constantly changing. It seems to have life, and it attracts everyone's attention at once. This is a Godhead shard. Ji Xinghe, who was beside Lin You, let out a low cry, with a strong desire in his eyes. Not to mention the 9th Order lords who rushed over, all of them have blazing eyes, and they can't wait to rush up to grab the fragments. However, when they saw King Xingyao standing in the void, they immediately went down. Grab things from the 11th Order powerhouses, unless they die. Is that a Godhead fragment? Compared to other people, Lin You didn't feel much about this thing, just looked at it curiously. After all, if something like this is given to him, it will only lead to death, and it will have no effect on him. Unless he can reach the 9th Order now. Otherwise, it's better not to overthink it. Soon. Under everyone's attention, King Xingyao waved his hand and put away the fragments of Godhead. The old man who stopped him just now also stepped into the void and came to Xingyao with a helpless expression. Hey, brother Xingyao, you shouldn't have killed him, at least you should have asked for the news of the Yuansha realm. This old man, although not as powerful as King Xingyao, is similar. It should be the person responsible for garrisoning the main city. When King Xingyao saw the old man, he snorted coldly, if I don't kill him, I can't get rid of the hatred in my heart. Letting him die like this is a bargain for him. Well, it's a foregone conclusion anyway. The most important thing next is to report the matter and see what the great emperors have to say. Obviously, the old man also understood the temper of King Xingyao and didn't get too involved in this matter. King Xingyao also restrained his expression when he heard the name of the emperor, and said, "All right, I have something important to report. Let's go together." After speaking, the two of them ripped apart the space and disappeared in the eyes of everyone. Before leaving, King Xingyao also recalled his golden armored knights, leaving only Ji Xinghe and Lin You and the others, standing there dumbfounded. "Let's go, it's time for us to go back and prepare. After this incident, the continent is about to change," Ji Xinghe said with a gloomy expression. "Changing the sky? Could it be?" Ji Yunchuan hesitated before speaking, and there was a trace of horror in his beautiful eyes. "Yes. Since Yuansha realm dares to do this, it can almost be said that it is an open declaration of war with primordial realm. Anyone who is a little bit smarter should know what's going to happen next. Lin You is naturally the same. So he didn't have the intention to stay and have a relationship with Ji Xinghe." After saying goodbye to the two, he hurried back to the main city. And the spy of the original evil world has finally come to an end here. Have you heard? The spy of the original Shajia has been found. Huh? So fast? Who found it? It seems that the king of Xingyao Kingdom found it, and do you know who the spy is? You can't believe it when you say it. Oh, you. It's such a time to sell off, so speak up. Look at you in a hurry, listen carefully, the spy of Yuansha realm is actually the king of a duchy under the kingdom of Xingyao. Fuck. King? 10th Order Lord? I didn't expect it? Actually, I didn't expect it, but many people saw it outside the city yesterday. That scene. TSK. What happened to the scene? Hurry up and say it. The news that the spies of the Yuansha realm had been executed had spread much faster than expected. It was only a short half a day, and it had already spread completely in the main city. Even the chat channels in major countries are discussing this matter fiercely, and they are all frightened by this astonishing fact. The people of the original evil world actually infiltrated their primitive continent and became the king of a principality? Don't say that those new lords are confused. Even those old lords were very confused, and they were inquiring about the specific process of the matter. And Lin You, who knew all the beginning and the end. At this time, he had already used the points he just obtained to exchange resources and return to the territory, ready to upgrade himself in an all-round way. The first thing to do is to take out the rare arms token that King Xingyao gave him. Rare arms token, random after use, you can randomly get a rare arms of the corresponding level of the corresponding territory. That's right. It's picked at random. This made Lin You couldn't help but get a little nervous, not knowing what kind of troops he would draw. After taking a deep breath, I finally opened the interface and chose to use it. Do you want to use rare arms token, random? Once used, it cannot be returned, so please decide carefully. Yes. Lin Yu's voice was trembling, and there was still a trace of expectation. Immediately afterwards, the token in his hand turned into a streamer and sank into the tree of life, and at the same time, came a pleasant reminder. Congratulations, you have successfully unlocked the 6th Order Rare Arms, the Willow. Willow? Such a strange name. Lin You wondered, and at the same time, he moved slowly, and directly clicked on the interface to recruit a new unit. Swish. Light flashed. A black-green thorny willow tree rose up from the ground and quickly grew to a height of more than 10 meters, and its information was also reflected in Lin Yu's eyes. Name, Willow. Race, plant. Level 6, upgrade with the territory. Strength? Constitution? Agile? Spirit? Skills, bizarre change, can copy the attributes of any type of monster, the level of the object cannot exceed its own level, soul incarnation, the close connection with the tree of life, so that the place where it is located is equivalent to the territory. Introduction, plants that are good at controlling the power of the soul are closely related to the tree of life, and can be used as the incarnation of the core of the territory. Now Lin Yu's mood is full of question marks, just like the attributes of the willow. Because the skills of this unit are really weird. Even the way of leveling up is different from other arms, it is based on the level of the territory. And it looks like a combat-type plant, and it looks like a functional plant, which is a bit difficult to distinguish. The skill of Strange Change is easy to understand, that is, you can copy the attributes of other arms or monsters at will. For example, he has the highest attribute of the royal family hero arm. As soon as it is copied, it immediately becomes a powerful unit. The problem is the second skill. Where are they all equivalent to the territory? If he guessed correctly, this means that as long as there is a willow tree, the surrounding plants can gain territorial benefits, right? If this is the case, then he really makes a lot of money. Because in his territory, there is a powerful sacred artifact gain. That is, the blessing of 8% of all attributes and 10% of recovery speed, which is equivalent to a fixed halo effect. And you can also get this territory blessing after you leave the territory. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that in the future, there may be more powerful sacred objects or other benefits in his territory. When the time comes, moving the willow outside will not be a lot more gain than other lords. This is a good skill. Lin You was pleasantly surprised, and immediately let Willow stay beside him first. I'm going to wait until I have time to mutate and see if I can create other plants, or inherit the skill of soul incarnation. Done with this. He just took out a teleportation array blueprint from his personal space. Yes, it is the architectural blueprint just exchanged. After all, his points are only 200,000, and there is still a long way to go before exchanging rare arms tokens, so he finally chose to use 100,000 to exchange this blueprint first. Looking at the blueprint in the center of his hand, Lin You took a deep breath and chose to use it. With the sound of a prompt, a familiar teleportation platform was quickly constructed on the open space not far away, just next to the main city teleportation formation. Lin You hurriedly walked over and clicked on the interface to check it out. Building name, Territory Teleportation Array. Building introduction. Through the connection with the territory, you can instantly teleport back to the territory, and each time you teleport consumes magic energy, you can carry troops. Teleportation consumption, 500 mana/km. Fortunately, the transmission cost is within the acceptable range, not too outrageous. He still has nearly 700,000 mana, and he can transmit 1,400 kilometers directly. Finally, he no longer has to worry about being out of time to return to the territory. In the future, there will be more magic energy, and you can even go to farther places. Next, there are only basic buildings left. While muttering to himself, Lin You came to the Tree of Life again and began to upgrade the basic buildings in Huangsha City. He has been busy running around for the past few days, and the basic buildings in the territory are almost forgotten by him. After this period of collection, his resources have also accumulated a lot, which is completely enough to raise all basic buildings to Tier 6. Without any hesitation, start the operation directly on the interface, and proceed to the buildings of Huangsha City one by one. Every time you click, a white light will light up in Huangsha City, which immediately attracts pedestrians in the city to stop and watch from a distance. Then, he also used the remaining resources to build turrets and outposts on the walls of Huangsha City to improve the defense capabilities of Huangsha City. After doing this, look at the sky again, it has gradually darkened. Lin You didn't go out anymore, but sat under the Tree of Life and started to enjoy the dinner just delivered by the people, while observing the trend of the chat channel. As he expected, after the rumor about the spy in the original Sha world spread, all the lords were talking about it, and compared with other countries, the lords on their side were obviously more angry. After all, the spy was in their kingdom. Especially the lords of the Fire Kingdom, almost all of them scolded the king angrily. At the same time, Lin You also found out. The new lords in the channel seem to have become a lot more than before. I don't know if the area blockade was lifted. Even when the sky turned completely dark, he saw a familiar beam of light descending to the south of Huangsha City, illuminating the entire night sky. That's the direction of Muyuan City? Lin Yu's eyes were surprised. He didn't expect that after so many days, a new lord would come to Muyuan City. It seems that his neighbor is about to add another one. With a slight smile, he turned off the interface, got up and went back to the treehouse to rest. Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.